Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to talk about something completely different, and that is sampling. I've always been intrigued by this process of producing music where you take snippets of sound from various sources and build like a collage of elements to create a new sound or a new part. So it is a thing that I've always wanted to learn, but somehow I've struggled to actually do because I'm always tempted, being a musician, to actually play the part. So mind you, I've given it a try. A few years ago, I acquired a groove box called Roland MC-707, which is an 8-track sequencer that has built-in sounds, and it also has sampling capabilities. So I have tried, lifting samples from various LPs, vinyl records, cassette tapes of like drum breaks, bass lines, vocal parts to essentially build a track, and then run with it. But oftentimes it's like, oh, then I have to trim the beginnings and the ends, and then I have to like make it fit the tempo, or maybe tweak the pitch a little bit so that it would match the key. And when I hit that kind of brick wall where I have to like tweak the samples to fit the vision, then I always like revert back to like, I'll just pull up a bass and play that part. I'll just have a friend play the drums if it needs like acoustic recording, or I'll just program it in my drum machine, and then that's it. So I've always been defeated by that process. But when I see other people, like expert samplers who kind of like manipulate the sounds, dig, crates and crates of vinyl records in search of that golden sample that would bring shine to their tracks, it just baffles me. So it's like they would find like a small string part from like an obscure classical recording, and it would become like a vocal sounding track on their production. So it's like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, I wish I know how to do that. Like, but then I'm like, if I'm gonna try and manipulate the sound, the sample to fit the vision that I have, and I want it to sound like a vocal, why don't I just like sing that, or like have a female singer sing it? But then when I do that, it becomes kind of like, oh, so I'm just using the same technique that I know. Nothing new, nothing really groundbreaking for me. So I've always had that quest to learn the art of sampling. I am talking about this because I am planning to buy a budget sampler. It's the Teenage Electronic EP133, I think. It is like that small plastic kind of toy-like sampler that I've been seeing on YouTube and in other social media platforms that apparently is very quite powerful. It is a sequencer, it has direct sampling, it has a mic. So not so much like the MC-707, which is it's a huge piece of gear, almost the same size as my TR8 8S. But this one here, the Teenage Engineering Sampler, is it's pretty pocket size. It's like probably the size of a smaller iPad. It is thin, and it has like that large horizontal LCD screen that you could see like animations and you know level, different kind of effects, and like you can see the actual kind of like things that are happening in your sample there. So it looked pretty cool and it sounded great, although it looked like a toy. But it's quite powerful, and I've read great reviews about it. But then I know if I order that and it arrives at my doorstep and I start playing with it, I I'm afraid that I might hit that brick wall again where I get excited and like pull up a drum break and then start like really sequencing it and like blending other samples, recording field recordings of like different sounds and then incorporating it there. I'm afraid I might get kind of like frustrated and be like, I'll just like play this, or like, why don't I just have someone play it? So that is my dilemma. I know you guys probably have a lot of experience in sampling, and I need your advice. So put it in the comments if you feel like sampling is something that I should be pursuing, because I'm really close to like purchasing this teenage electronic, I think it's PE or EP133 sampler, because it's still at around $299, and with the tariffs now kicking in, I feel like it might get expensive in a few weeks. So I'm kind of like pressured to like really order it and play around with it. Of course, like if I don't like it, then I could always sell it, but I don't want to fall into that trap again. So I am planning to like watch more videos about it and basically learn the art of it. Like, do you like just leave it as is if you can't like match the tempo of like a certain sound source or like a certain sample? Like, what if I take the drums from like a favorite record of mine or an obscure, record from like the 50s, put that in, create like a drum beat, and then the other samples don't match? What's your advice in like making sure that I don't get frustrated, or is it really that frustrating that you're kind of like resigned to the fact that that's how it is? It is what it is. Sampling is basically kind of like putting pieces of a puzzle together, and sometimes they just don't fit, and you just got to live with that. Maybe it is the beauty of it, the imperfections, or like the inconsistencies of the elements that are being put together, and that's where I'm like fascinated by it. I read an article about D'Lo or D'Angelo using samples in a very different way. I've heard other people who are actually kind of purposely making samples sound like lazy, like they're not quantized, they're not in tune, or they're not like up to the actual structure of the track, so it would sound like it was played by a human. So I understand the fact that the beginnings of sampling was related to like producers who couldn't afford musicians, or rent a studio, pay session drummers to play a track that they're producing. And then with the advent of like early digital sampling technology with the MPCs, I know that they found the way to just take a snippet of like a drum break and basically stretch that to where their imaginations could take them. So that is fascinating. That is really like something I would want to learn. Do you have any like suggestions in terms of channels that I should be watching to kind of get a firm grasp of the art of sampling before I even purchase this? I know it's only $2.99, so it's not a big loss. I could still like play around with it, use it as a drum machine or whatever, but I really want to learn how to sample. And I don't want to fall back into like, oh, let me just play that part, because that's always there. Being a musician, I'm always like, why would I lift a bass line when I can actually like play that line? But one of the things that a fellow producer of a friend of mine told me was that the art of sampling also involves capturing a specific vibe from an existing recording. So like if that drum break or like a bass solo that you sample was recorded at a certain, specific studio room at a specific period of time using specific period pieces of gear, like a drum break recorded at a Motown studio or like Columbia Studios or CBS Studios or Abbey Road or Olympic. It captures a certain recording or a sonic imprint that is already interesting. So they were like, oh, yeah, sure. My friend was like, you can play that, but you're not capturing the magic of that room or that, 2-inch reel tape that captured the sound or the mic that recorded the whole performance. And that to me is appealing. Like, yes, I could play the part for sure, but yes, it would be different tools, a different time, a different room. So I would revert to like using plugins to make it sound like something that is not available to me. And I think that is a major reason to get into sampling. Because if I'm thinking of like lo-fi beats, I would like look at, beats or drum breaks that were done in the 80s or the 70s that are like chill and it really captures the technology of the time, the room, and even the condition of the actual drummer or the bassist or guitarist. So you're essentially borrowing a specific period of time and add it to your recordings now. It's very romantic. That to me is like a dream to like actually learn how to use it, I am a record collector. I love digging, crate digging. I love looking for B-sides. I love recording field sounds. But I always end up not being good at it, because I lack experience. I don't have much knowledge about that. So, and also there might be legal repercussions if I just like lift a sample straight up and not even mask it or like process it so it doesn't sound like the actual recording. So that too, I know for a fact that, you're supposed to license recorded material for if you're creating a derivative work. So that too, but I kind of know how to navigate through that by actually licensing a track if I can get a hold of the copyright holder. But what if it's just like, a drum track from like one of my old archival cassette tapes that my dad's band played at in like the 70s. It wasn't commercially released. It wasn't like a popular track. Maybe I could lift that and, not process it just to capture the sound because it doesn't make sense to like get that magic from a period and then drown it in effects and processing so it doesn't sound like it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that is a dilemma for me. I get it if it's like a distinct piece of arrangement that is popular, like say the string section of a Star Wars, soundtrack. It's very recognizable. You immediately hear that it's like, oh, that's John Williams. So you're tempted or you're required to at least chop it up and then make it sound like it's not the Empire Strikes Back theme. But in terms of like recordings for pop music or rock or electronic, I feel like I shouldn't manipulate them and mask the sound and make it sound like it's not a sample. To me, it defeats the purpose. But again, I could be completely wrong about this. So, and that's why I've created this video to get some guidance from you if I am pursuing or taking the right path here and really immerse myself in learning how to sample. because once I purchased that sampler, I will be on it and really trying to, master it and maybe even, produce a record out of it. But do you think it's still worth it to pursue that? Am I too late? So those are the questions that, because a friend of mine was like, you don't need to sample. It's just an extra step. You can just like record a program, a drum beat, add some vinyl, plug-in effects, EQ it to sound like it was recorded from like the 60s. And there you have it. No possible legal issues. You don't need to, trim and like chop and do whatever. You're basically creating your own sound. And for people, who are advocates of that, they would say, you get more pride and like you get more satisfaction with creating or playing your own parts. I get that because that's how I do things. I play everything. But then, I see a video of like this person who's like a producer taking bits and pieces of sound from whatever source and then turns into like a nice ambient chill, or even hip hop or jazzy kind of like beat. It's astounding and I'm a fan of that. So, I'm at a crossroads right now. So we'll see. I mean, I would be super thrilled to read your comments below and, what your experience is like in terms of producing with samples. And also let me know how, if you are a user of that teenage electronic sampler, tell me about your experience and just post it in the comments. I would love to learn from all of you. And then who knows, maybe the next video would be me producing something on that teenage electronic sampler. So I'm excited, but at the same time, a little weary that, I might end up with another MC-707 situation where I would have to sell the thing because I couldn't use it or I wasn't satisfied, So yeah, so that's my piece today, but I'm not gonna end this video with just that. I am planning to just like add a little jam with my Behringer UBXA and leave you guys with that for now. So thank you so much again for watching. Thank you everyone for those who subscribe to the channel. I'm so thrilled that you're part of this journey. So yeah, until next time. Bye.